right there.
Thanks. Good evening and welcome to the February 16th meeting of Litchfield School Board. I'll call the meeting to order and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
How hard that is to do
Do
without
we have any
coughing in the middle.
revisions to the agenda?
There are not. There were a few links that were livened up that we'll hit as we go through it. But
Everything is still in order.
Security numbers on it,
Summary of
names.
non-public actions from February 2nd, 2022. Mrs. Harrison made a motion to approve the non-public minutes for January 19th, 2022. Mr. Burke seconded. The motion carried 5-0. Mrs. Harrison made a motion to release Curtis Verkaitis, CHS science teacher, from his contract subject to finding a suitable replacement. Mr. Burke seconded. The motion failed 0-5-0. Mrs. Harrison made a motion to approve the resignations, retirements of Kathleen Bangert, LMS art teacher, Teresa Tarr, LMS social studies teacher, Elizabeth Zingales, LMS math teacher, Jean Henriquez, LMS special educator, Lisa Lazaki, LMS fax teacher, Deborah Langton, LMS science teacher, Kathleen Citalo, LMS social studies teacher, effective June 30th, 2022. Mrs. McDonald seconded. The motion carried 5-0. Mr. Burke made a motion to withdraw the grievance settlement offer previously approved by the board. Mrs. Hirschberger seconded. The motion carried 5-0. That brings us to community input. We'll do 3 minutes per person. The Google Meet is live. If you'd like to join in from home, the link is meet.google.com/HARJANA-HNK, or join by phone 1-662-565-5146, PIN 911-992-355#. Let's see. Public input. Susan, did you have public input for us? Hello.
I just had some questions regarding the 4-point competency. I saw that in the meeting notes, it stated that on October 8th, it actually started, like there's training that started. And I think you confirmed it as well, Tina. And I was wondering, where has it started and how, there is a date of June of this year to complete it, to be implemented for September. So I just would like to get some more information on that. When I looked at the meeting minutes online, it only goes through November. There's nothing for December or January. And I don't know if there's a February meeting that also happened. So.
Thank you. Which minutes were you referring to?
The grading and curriculum, grading and reporting one.
There should have been minutes out for January.
There's November and only September and October I could actually get in. In November, I requested permission to get into. So I couldn't see any progress for November. The other thing, and I think that's pretty much it, like the percentage of staff and what school. And the other thing I noticed is that there isn't a lot of representation from CHS in those meetings. And I can tell you that I've been approached by many on the situation, like that they were asked to go back to the school, to their departments, and take information on how the teachers wanted to proceed, if they were would like to move forward with it or not. And there was a 78% of the teachers at CHS that said they didn't want to, but this is just from reporting purpose. Like I don't know of any formal reporting. So that was the other question I wanted to ask. Is there a survey out there that surveys the teachers and even the students? And I think it would be beneficial to get parent input. And I think it would be beneficial to have a meeting with parents, teachers, students, and administration to kind of draft up a survey for all. And it should be held by a third party and not internal to the school, because even though it says it's anonymous, they are not necessarily anonymous. And I think it's important to have people on be honest about, what their feeling is on it. And I also want to state, Tina, I do back up competency-based learning. I see that you guys are using iReady now, which is phenomenal. It's all competency-based learning. And, I don't know if you guys are going to use Ready along with it, but it's very good. I worked for the company for 5 years and I know it works. So that's what I just wanted to say right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other public input? All right, with that, we'll close community input. Thank you for providing comments on tonight's agenda. We'll have another public input session at the end of the meeting. So we'll move on to the business portion of our meeting. Did we have any students?
Yeah.
Students, come on up.
And we don't have anybody in the
Okay.
link, so I'll close it out.
So tonight we just kind of want to give an update on just some things that have been going on at Campbell. So student council we're kind of currently finishing up our mathematics and carnation sales. The carnation sales kind of finished on Monday, which is really good. We bought 100 this year. We sold all of them, which is 25 more than last year. And then I think the mathematics just came in today. So we're going to finish selling them throughout the week. And then all profits from these sales are going to go towards the senior scholarship. Do you want to talk about what we're doing student council right now?
Yeah, so just a quick update, February for student council. We recently broke up into small subcommittees in order to be able to work on different projects in a more timely manner. So we are doing a Campbell Culture and Climate Committee just to try to bring back the culture of Campbell, and just kind of make it a little bit more close together than it was. An LMS committee, so we're going to be working with LMS student council to really get them going. I know we kind of spoke to Mr. Fraser today, and there were some things that need to be worked on. So we're just going to kind of help them as a larger council and older kids to kind of just give them a little bit of guidance. Another guidance committee that's going to be working with the guidance department at Campbell about grading and just that type of stuff. Student council bylaws and just revamping the advisory committee. And then today was also just 8th grade course selections at the middle school. So all guidance counselors went down, and Emma and I were there, as well as Piper Odom and Sam Roach, so a freshman and a sophomore. We just kind of gave a brief rundown of what life is at Campbell and just the difference from LMS to Campbell. And they seem to be really excited about the transition. So yeah, that's just kind of a little bit of an update.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to correspondence.
Yep. So we had several, and most of them all pertain to the same concerns. The first one on 2-3 from Stacy Lamontagne. She has concerns over us changing mask and COVID protocols. 2-4, Kristen Duran's. Same thing, concerns over changing mask protocols. 2-3, Stacy Leary has concerns over the short notice of mask changes at GMS, concerned the young kids not being able to navigate wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. There was no time to communicate with families, how families felt. And I know that there was a lot of conversation from after our meeting in the next couple of days and then the weekend that I think took care of all those concerns. On 2-6, Adrian Naylor responded to Tyra had sent a question about isolation and when it needed to take place, and she responded to that. On 2-6, Donna Boucher says she agrees with suggestions from Adrian sent to Mike. Does not want her name attached to any COVID-19 school policies. On 2-6, Kelly Chambers does not agree with the plan, does not agree that it's up to date, and agrees with Adrian. And there was a lengthy email from Faith Erdemer, say her name, questioning the guidelines that they are clearer now, but there's still this discrepancy between Litchfield rules and DHHS. and what the CHS nurse was saying. It was intentional that it was done that way. And her biggest concern is quarantine for siblings. She had one, I think, that had COVID, then another one, then she cleared, and then another one had it. So it was pretty confusing, but I know that, again, Dr. Jetty reached out to her the next day, just informing Faith that clarification and that her child could return to school the next day. On 2/7, Adrian Naylor again, clarification on COVID symptoms. That's, I think, what she was about the number of days having to isolate regardless of vaccination, and that they need to test. And I think that's been clarified since. On 2/7, Holly Falzone sent out clarification as far as the mask changes, how it was done quickly. There's some confusion, I know, down in GMS as far as there were some teachers that needed accommodations, so they weren't quite certain of the quick change in the rule. So it wasn't so much the teachers would being defiant or anything else. It's just they were just trying to get clarification and just wanted to make sure that everyone was safe. I believe that's been all taken care of also. On 2/7, Adrian Naylor again sent us that there was a typo on the plan and say it, instead of DHHS, it was DPHS. And the last on 2/7, Faith Erdemer, thanking Dr. Jetty for his time and concern and the modification and the verbiage change. And that was it.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
All right, that brings us to superintendent comments.
Great, thanks. So I wanted to just start off by talking a little bit about deliberative. I mean, we've held deliberative session. I think the time to capture thoughts or reactions to either the format, the way it was set up, or anything that we need to make sure that we stay on top of from that would be now while it's sort of fresh. So I just sort of wanted to spend a little bit of time taking feedback from the board. So thoughts on deliberative?
One thing I was just curious about is when a vote comes in that close, like when a standing vote comes in that close, is it typical to not have like a written recount? You know what I mean? It just seemed like it was so close, and I don't know. It seems like that when it's within a certain margin of error, it should have gone to a paper vote. But I
Unless
don't
I'm
know.
mistaken.
I don't know the
Unless
rules.
I'm mistaken, I think anyone can request a paper vote.
So,
Yeah, with five.
well, I know it
Five
it
signatures.
was requested, but I didn't know if like the moderator, based on the like what a 2-vote difference,
Yeah.
if that's really that's the role of the moderator to say, you know what, it's awfully close, it shouldn't have gone to a paper ballot.
Yeah.
That's my question. I don't know. You're a moderator in another town.
I am. It's for the moderator to make the declaration. Sometimes it's within one vote that can happen. I think before the moderator declares it, they want to be confident in the number. And I do think it's harder to do in a gym than it is in an auditorium. There were people coming in out the door,
Yeah.
so I just thought, I think you're raising a good procedural point. In many towns, when people check in, they receive a colored index card, and you hold the index card, and you're not counting standing or sitting, you're counting the colored
Yeah.
card.
Mhm.
And I think we should add that to a procedural piece because it just streamlines it. I'm just
Yeah.
counting blue cards. And if somebody's holding up a yellow card, I'm not counting it because that's not the color. And maybe you do blue for school and yellow for town or something so you can differentiate it.
Mhm.
You're not guessing if someone is standing or sitting.
Right.
Yeah.
Are they trying to vote or not? Because there was definite confusion.
It was. And like, I mean, Kate Stevens took my vote, and I mean, I let her take it and I trust her, but I'm like, how was that actually supposed to happen? How are votes supposed to be collected? Because I don't know if anybody else, like, she was trying to be kind, and
Oh, what do you
I'm
mean, the
like-
secret ballot?
yeah,
The
once it got
moderator's
to the
supposed to
ballot-
have 1 or 2 people go out of the audience, go
Oh.
Like
collect
at the
them.
church.
They had the
It is the
collecting
church basket.
baskets.
Yeah.
Their church baskets.
So people Yeah. got out of their seats and came down to the floor. But I think there were other amendments being written and handed in, and it was confusing.
I think there was also confusion with the timing because this particular issue was being discussed right at the
1 o'clock mark when the town deliberative was supposed to be starting. And so there were people arriving just as votes were being taken. And so I think, I don't know if we want to consider timing for next time, but either adding more of a gap. And I understand why the town wanted it to be when it was supposed, I think it was noon or 1. I can't remember which way it went, but
Well, they didn't want to post at 1 because they were afraid if we were done at 11,
right.
there'd be a big gap. So they chose to post at noon because you can't start before the posted time, but you can start after the posted.
All they have to do is read our articles. They know that they weren't going to be done at 11.
Well, Tara and I stayed through the town. What was that, another hour and a half?
Yeah, I stayed
Yeah, it
too.
was really
Yeah.
quick. I don't remember. Very
It seems
little
like 8
discussion.
years ago, but was
Well, the other,
I know.
the other concern too that I would just make mention for next year is, yeah, people are coming and going, which is fine. I mean, if you're a citizen, then you can come in, you can vote regardless if you heard the argument. But we don't know if everyone who came in was a citizen. I mean, of Litchfield, right? People just coming and going, and it's like, and all of a sudden we
That's
take a
a good
vote.
point.
Well, to that point, Brian,
Didn't we have
The card shows the
non-citizens
cit-
in the right-hand side though?
We did at the beginning.
and the
What?
card shows.
We did at the beginning, but not 4 hours later when
And
people
we
were
did
coming in.
have people who live in town sitting in the non-citizen section. So were those votes counted? Were they not counted? I mean,
So in my town, you get a hospital bracelet or a amusement park bracelet, whatever you want to call it. And
Yeah.
that's how you know you're holding that up and you've gone through the checklist. You are a citizen, you have that on. Because it is on somewhat of an honor system as to who sits where.
Well, let's put it this way. I'm walking out at one point and I heard an individual ask another individual, go get me a pink sheet because I have to vote.
Well,
Just
and I
saying.
guess I will say it here. And I don't know if anybody, no, I know, I think I should not.
Well, so I think the procedures of making sure that only registered voters are in possession of a sheet. So there's another point, Brian. In most towns that I've been in, you don't get a bunch of pink ballots. You get a packet that has a pink ballot, a blue ballot, a yellow ballot, a green ballot. And then when you go to cast the ballot, you go up with your bracelet on.
Yeah.
They take a green marker and they say, you've cast your green ballot. And then you cast your green ballot. And then if there's a second vote, everybody's voting pink now. You come up, we cross off the pink, you vote the pink ballot. So then you know everybody cast one pink, one green, or whatever. So there are easy ways to regulate that and just make sure that it's clean. We can definitely work on that. And I'm a little unclear. We'll have to talk, Michelle, because I'm not sure whose responsibility is to set that up. If it's the town and the moderator or the district.
Yeah, that's the supervisor of the checklist
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
Well, the ballot clerks check everybody in.
Yep.
So I think it's up to the moderator to determine.
Can you register at the polls that day?
It's a good question.
With
At the
deliberative.
polls, but I don't think you can at
Can you
I don't
register
think
at
so. It's
deliberative?
deliberative. I think you can do it on election day.
I don't know, Mike, on that comes up. And then on another note, the sound system was horrendous.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You couldn't hear anything.
The echo, I had a headache between the
I had to
echo and the
literally
lights.
do the minutes from the video because I got so
Yeah.
many things wrong because I couldn't hear anything.
Because I was watching the
Yeah.
town one at home and it was clear as day.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, so the recording part was clear as can be.
The recording was clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was LCTV's fault. We didn't measure it for the audience, we measured it for the monitor.
Oh,
Because I mean, I was at the basketball game last night and they were talking with just the 4 speakers over there and you could hear everything clear as day. But I mean, it was terrible. I mean, you couldn't hear anyone who was coming up on a microphone.
Good feedback. Who knows a year from now? Are we back in the auditorium? Do we stay in the gym? But we definitely need to make sure that there's the sound. You need to be heard. It's interesting talking to our new IT director. On the list, I had a projector for the auditorium. It's been on there for a while, and we just kind of keep kicking the can down the road. Like, we'll get one in there. And he said the first thing, I mean, think about it. His first meeting was that public meeting. And he's like, how come they have this projector on a cart that's like kind of ragged down here versus something built in? So I'm like, good. Well, let's get on
I
that.
thought it was great he was there.
But we also talked about the fact that, presenting on the screen up front is way better than projecting on the wall in the back, because it was really difficult to see and so
Yeah.
forth. So I think we figured out the auditorium. Now we just have to figure out the gym. So. Anything else on deliberative?
I think the rest is pretty straightforward.
So next up, Michelle's done a great job of crafting a voter guide draft, and we need to get this ready to merge with the town and to get it ready to send out to the voters. So we're going to be working on this tomorrow and Friday at the latest, because you have to get it to the
I
printer.
gotta get it to the printer tomorrow.
Okay, so I guess we're working on it tomorrow, so that we can get it to the printer. So here's the chance, if you have comments or thoughts on it, to get them
So the
made
new
on
one
there.
was posted this afternoon, Michelle. What's different between?
Okay,
these?
so
I didn't
the-
have a chance to.
That's
That's
what I was
okay.
asking.
There were just small differences. So on the, not the cover page for the town, the school district, but the page with Article 1, which is page, I don't know how page
The
numbers on
school.
here.
Article in the school.
So Article 1, I had in the explanation, the second to last paragraph where it says 41, tax rate decrease of 41 cents per thousand.
Oh, okay.
I had an amount in there for equal, what it equates to
Yeah.
for a $400,000 house. I took those out because I don't think that's necessary. And it can be confusing. So I just left it at the,
Mhm.
what the decrease is per thousand. And then on Article 8, I added an article note about what actually happened at deliberative,
Oh, I
how
see.
it was
It's already-
amended.
Okay.
Because I think it's important for people who weren't there to know.
Yeah.
And basically, I think that was it. That's all I updated.
Read that before. Okay. Maybe it was reworded slightly.
I can't imagine there's going to be much more than just minor clarifying edits in there tomorrow, and then we'll get it ready to go.
I think both of them for Article 8 and Article 6 is a good, quick definition as far as what exactly we're trying to get to. And those are the two hard ones that
Mhm.
knew where they were going.
We had at one point talked about including a chart of what the payments are for the municipal lease purchase on Article 6. So it's 195 the first year. What is it the second year? What is it the third year? What is it the fourth year? See that here?
We can add that.
They'd be more scary
That
by
doesn't
adding it.
confuse people because every year after year 1 will be in the budget.
But people still want to know what the payment is.
Looks like.
Does the payment change?
It goes
I
down.
think that'll come when we have some actual MLP bids in, when we can see what the payments are, exactly what the payments are going to look like. And that should be coming in by the end of this week, I believe.
It'd probably be too late.
But
to
we
put it
can
on there.
answer the question that the payment will be, if we even put the payment will be equal to or less than the 195, and it'll be incorporated in the budget, if that's the actual
Coming from energy savings.
answer, and that it will be paid for out of savings to energy reduction. So it's not going to be,
It's not like the fire truck. It's the same amount, like
Right.
the same
right.
amount of time.
Right. So I would phrase that as our the funds in our operating budget for fuel, oil, and electricity will be reallocated toward the municipal lease purchase agreement.
correct. Yep.
Instead of savings. That gets muddy.
Well, the other thing is that when the solar array is paid off, so now you're no longer paying those energy savings toward the array, it's more money available for the MLP. So, all of it's built into the operating budget. I guess I'm a little confused by the request from the public, because what we have said all along is we're going to add this 195 one time. It's then, there will be no further ask, right? So, and then people are saying, but what is it? And it's like, well, it's the 195.
Right. I think they want to know what the total cost is. Like, I think the sentiment that I'm reading is that they feel like we're hiding $2 million somewhere. because because it doesn't add up to the total. So some people have said they would rather see the full cost of it on the ballot, not just the amount that
so-
they're paying for.
So I think, Corey, what we can do pretty quickly, and it's got to be an estimate because we've already heard, so we sent out the RFQ or RFP for municipal leases. Those are due back in, as Corey said, this week. But the rates are kind of fluctuating and each bank has a different lens on this type of lending. So, but we could do an estimate and say, if you borrow this amount, you'll pay back in principal and interest this amount at this interest rate. But it has to be an estimate because if we get a lower rate or a higher rate, it would fluctuate.
Okay.
And that the 195 add plus the energy savings will come to paying back the full loan plus interest. So, you know, a $4.9 million, $4.95 million lease, you know, say we're going to pay back, I'm doing it off the top of my head, but say it's $5 million or $5.5 million total. The extra money is coming from those savings, right? So it's not
Right.
2 million missing. It's that
Right.
it's the energy savings that are funding it
Right.
and allowing us to do way more work because those energy savings
Right.
are realized.
Okay.
So we'll find a way to make that more coherent tomorrow and get it in there.
Okay.
Are you noting it for me?
No, I'm writing something else.
Oh, okay.
So maybe you should note it.
I got it.
No, I was like, if you note it, you got it. All right.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Anything else on the voter guide? Nope. Okay.
It's really helpful, you know, I think
Yeah.
it's a good piece of information for people, so. thank you.
Right. CHS graduation?
Yep. And so if you look at the calendar that's linked there, we did have graduation marked as tentative for the, where is it, Michelle? I have my calendar.
Oh, I didn't print it. I'm sorry. It's in the link.
Okay, let me go to the link. Sorry. Nope. Don't apologize. It's all good.
I think so.
All right. So when we published the calendar, and again, the school board approved this back in February of 21, we show here graduation as tentatively scheduled for Friday, the 10th, and that the 175th day is the 8th and the 180th day is the 15th. So our feeling is that this will work based on where we are at this point in the winter. Even if we were to have 2 more snow days, literally traditional snow days, the seniors can still graduate on the 10th. So our recommendation is to firm that up and set graduation for Friday, the 10th.
Great.
I'll make a motion to set graduation date Friday, the 10th
I'll
of
second.
June, 2022.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500. Graduation is June 10th.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And that is what I have for you.
Great. That will bring us to school board comments.
Might as well bring it up. I love you, Mary. We talk about the grading thing. I've been very vocal. And as you so eloquently put, that we're all entitled to our own opinions. As an educator, I believe that competency should be weighted, and I believe in the hybrid system. We tried it in Hudson. It didn't work. I thought it was getting them ready for college. Well, I look at Tommy's
You tried what in Hudson and it didn't work.
all competency based. Kids didn't do any of their work. They didn't do homework. They didn't do formative. So at the end of the semester, we're all running around trying to catch up their formatives to make them pass their summatives so they can pass the class. You could address this.
I'm gonna address
Yeah.
it in my presentation because there's so much misinformation out there right now, and what is going around is not what's happening.
Okay.
So I'm gonna address all of that in my presentation tonight. I've been really clear with the school board from minute one that we will not make any transition to a 4-point scale or to a full competency system without the approval of the community and the
I
board.
saw that because I saw it in one of the slides. Your original presentation, it said whether we're going to go all competency or hybrid. It was written.
Correct.
It was absolutely written there. This is my personal opinion, and I just want you.
We're not even close to being able to make that decision yet. That's a couple of years out before we can get there.
So are we still grading the old way?
We're grading on a 100-point scale.
Okay, it's because I thought we were doing this to catch up with high school, college, and now that I'm seeing Tommy's report card, which was very good, he's graded on attendance. He has quizzes, he has papers, he has tests, and the tests count more than the quizzes, and that's how it works where I work. 10% is homework, 30% is quizzes, and 60% is tests. And
That's not a competency system.
no,
So,
they're calling it a competency base.
but it's not. So that's where
Should we have the,
Yeah, you can. I'm
I
just.
think we're just skipping ahead at
Yeah.
this point.
Right.
No, I don't want anyone. This is just how I feel because
everybody has the right to their opinion.
And then I think I got called up for being exposed to COVID and I had to leave. So then I would like to hear your side of it because I think everything should count, even homework, because it's teaching children accountability.
So
I see it. I'm not listening
Well,
to you.
Are there any, I don't want to skip
Yep.
over if
No,
there are
no.
any other school board comments.
I'll readdress after.
if I could just, I did type in, because you
Yeah.
asked me to look into an auto reply.
Mhm.
So I
What
put
auto reply?
auto reply. So I
From
put
us?
draft language in.
Yeah, I saw that. It's fabulous.
And
Yeah.
that's what I'm suggesting. So what I was told by, actually, Google has a lot of features. I didn't know that you could drive all this, but if somebody emails schoolboard@litchfieldsd.org, that reply can automatically go back to everybody.
It's a
So they know they
courtesy
got
that
it.
we receive their email.
And you can also have an individual one on top of it.
Mhm.
So you could set up something different. You can set it up different so that an external email address gets a different reply than an internal. So if I email the board from the Litchfield domain, it can say something different. So I just want you to be aware of all those features. But I think that answers the question that you most wanted to answer, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if you're,
I think that's great. I think that's pretty much wraps up what we wanted to say.
Yeah.
and if you're comfortable with it, I'll get it to Chris because he has to do the magic. But
Yeah.
now I understand what the magic could be.
Because I don't want anyone, and I'm sure all of us don't want anyone to feel like they're not being heard,
Mhm.
because that's our job, is to work for the taxpayers. And Mary, I'm sorry, because I'm feeding it. I see bits and pieces, and then I get my own district and what happened there, because I'm hearing different things too. Okay, that's, you don't.
All right. Any other school board comments?
Yep. I just want to take a moment and just give a shout out to girls basketball for their season. They're done. And all the seniors. And also I'd like to give a shout out to the boys basketball team that, well, not even varsity, but also JV. I mean, JV had an excellent year this year. They were like 15-2, something like that. So
Yeah.
just tells you that the future is bright for basketball. But the boys basketball has moved on. They won their playoff game yesterday and they have another one on Friday.
Friday night.
Packed
Yeah, it's a great
the gym.
activity for a family.
It was a
on
great
Friday
game.
night.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
a great game last night. And again, there's like, I think 8 seniors on the team. So
yeah, there are a lot.
congratulations to all of them.
Thank you.
I just wanted to quickly say, I thought that CHS is in the middle of doing scheduling and picking classes right now. I think it's been, from what I hear, the feedback I'm getting is it's going incredibly well. Val has been fantastic in terms of answering questions, being right on top of things. So I just want to give a shout out because I know it's a kind of a stressful time of year over there right now. And when
She
we can
seems
give
cool, calm,
praise,
and
we
collected,
should give
yeah.
praise. And I have been thrilled with her and her contact with my student, but just also in general. So
As a parent of an 8th grader rising to CHS next year, he has been really excited about the course offerings and his choices and choosing his
Can ask them.
classes. And I think
Michelle.
the collaboration between the guidance department at CHS and the guidance department at LMS is phenomenal this year. I really have, it's made a positive impact on a lot of students, including mine. So thank you for that. Okay, let's approve the public minutes, and then we'll go right into Mary's curriculum report. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 2nd, 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, 500.
Building cleaner.
And I'll make a motion
Sorry.
to approve the public minutes from February 5th, 2022,
Over there.
which is the meeting we had after the deliberative session. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And all in
That's
favor,
no
say
picture.
aye.
What are we
Aye.
voting on? Sorry, I missed it. I was
February
like,
5th.
February 5th minutes. That was the meeting that we had after
Thank you.
deliberative.
oh, yes. Okay.
All
I was
opposed?
staring at you guys. Sorry.
We got this.
I
Abstain?
approve, not oppose.
Okay, so
I think I missed
500. We good?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if I could, I just want to let everybody know that the draft deliberative minutes are online.
Okay.
If anybody wants to look at them.
Thank
They're
you.
very, very long.
Yeah.
We were there. I know. 31 pages.
Oh my
It was a
goodness.
long day.
Wow.
All right. And with that, we will invite Ms. Whitman up.
Right.
for
Mary, are
her
you starting with the
curriculum
report or the
No, I'm
presentation?
gonna do my report first. Just a couple items from it, and then I will go into the presentation. All right, good evening. Find my report. Just to address a couple things that have been going on, professional learning. I'm really excited. I know we've been stalled with the ELA and social studies stage 1 writing due to the pandemic. We have had over 10 teachers working after school. I am confident that we will have minimally our secondary ELA and social studies curriculums revised and brought through to the board before the end of this year. My goal is, now that I feel we're in a good spot there, to start going down and working directly with the elementary people. After school is a little more difficult for them, so I'm going to try and see if I can target some of their team time to get some of this work done. Our PD committee finally met for the first time. We have run into a series of conflicts with union meetings, me being sick and out, nobody showing up, being able to show up except for me, and which defeats the purpose of a committee meeting. So we had our first actual face-to-face meeting. We've done a lot of back and forth remotely, but we had our first face-to-face meeting last week. And we are really focused on opportunities for spring and summer PD opportunities. We're looking at Live to Learn. I've asked them to continue to find out from their teachers what the needs are. We've already started compiling a list. But one of the big focuses that one of the things that we've really accomplished over the last year or so is to really make those sessions staff-run sessions. And I think that has been hugely beneficial for not only the teachers that are attending, but also the teachers that are running the sessions. For a lot of them, it has been making them step out of their comfort zone significantly. So it's exciting about that. Grading and reporting, we're kind of stuck in a holding pattern, which I will be getting us out of this week. But we were making good progress on the relearning and the common practices. And I actually ended up canceling yesterday's meeting because we were not at a point where we would be able to make any progress forward. So I am meeting with individual buildings over the next few weeks so that when we have our meeting in March, we are able to actually hopefully nail down the final language and the relearning and the common practices and bring it forward. So I'm excited at that possibility and that goal. PERC has been pretty quiet since we brought all the courses forward. Looking at assessment and data, we are almost completely
through our winter iReady testing. That has been really just a great platform for us. The feedback that we're getting from parents and from teachers is significant. But you can see that's the overall growth for our ELA and math students at both LMS and GMS. You know, I've dug in on the background a little bit with the why such a huge jump at LMS and, you know, a very good jump at GMS, but not at the same level. And I really think a lot of it boils down to the use of the personalized pathways. I do know that that LMS is focusing on using those pathways more as through intervention and with their best and things of that nature. So we're working on it, continuing to encourage teachers to get the kids working those pathways. And we'll see what the growth looks like from fall to spring.
Can you just explain what the percentages are telling us?
So I did link. Can you guys?
Yeah, I see that.
So click this button.
Yep.
Yeah. I thought just for the people at home.
So basically, when we look at the growth, it's how much growth the student has made compared to the typical students at that age level.
Okay.
So we're looking, the numbers that are there are the typical growth. I did not include the numbers on the stretch growth. Excuse me.
So anything
Bronchitis.
over 100, it was hard for me to figure this out. Too,
Yeah.
Tina. You're not the only one.
But this is a second diagnostic.
This is the second
They've done
diagnostic.
one in September.
Correct.
I look at these numbers all day.
Yeah. So
This is growth from
just from September to
Yeah.
January in
September to January.
compared to their peer cohort. So kids that are at the same age taking the same type of assessment, same grade levels, and how much growth are they making?
So it says the aim to exceed 100% of their typical growth measure. So are we saying that ELA has already met that?
It met it for the mid-year,
already.
but
Okay.
the targets move as the kids' expectations are.
Okay.
You know, so the target for the spring will be a higher average than what it was for the winter, which is higher than what it was for the fall.
Do parents have access to this?
I haven't seen any.
So I'm going to take full responsibility for that. We have not sent out the winter reports yet.
Okay.
I know that some at LMS, I believe some teachers have sent them home, but we have not sent home district-wide. We have not sent them home yet.
there was talk of making those available through Power School. Am I thinking about something else?
Yeah, I don't think there's
I
a
was
way
thinking
for us.
SAT
Yeah.
and PSAT.
I don't think there's a way for us to get these
That's too bad.
tied in.
They're not, you can't get PSATs through there either. It's a special website.
So that, yeah, really excited about that and seeing, you know, looking at the fact that the teachers have really kind of embraced it, which is how a system like this is going to be most helpful to kids.
Mm-hmm. And all students are taking iReady, or is this an
All
intervention?
students K through 8.
Okay.
We use it for intervention and support at the high school with a very small percentage of students. But that's not reflected in any of this because it's not as consistent a practice.
I've heard good things from the teachers. They really seem to like it. The information they get from it, and you probably can relate, that is really detailed and gives them a lot of what needs, you know, what to do.
It tells
to
you
support
what kids are testing on a third grade level in fifth
Right.
grade. And they might be special ed, or they might not test well. It's an amazing tool to use.
And it's also, I know from my experience using other systems like it, it really is just such good information for the teachers. And I know in our PLCs, and it's happening more and more at GMS, but LMS with Jen's background in it, it really has become a focus of their PLC discussions. So
Great.
Sorry, back to the parent situation. Then you can jump in. Oh, what are you doing?
he's fixing the fact
Oh,
that
okay.
I had the wrong date on it. I was putting us back a year.
I was trying to do that discreetly. Thanks.
Sorry. like, what's happening? Will this be available electronically for parents, or is the hope that it will be like literal hard copies that go home?
Right now, I don't know how to get it to the
Okay.
point that it's electronic. It's the way we know how to do it easiest is to actually batch print them.
Okay.
So
And then we have to
ideally,
ask our kids for it is the only thing. So okay.
Yeah.
The folders are so nice at the elementary school because you check your kid's
Yeah.
folder and you're like, all right, awesome. Middle school, it's in the backpack, crumpled and folded over at least. Okay. Just checking.
and so again, I have to check our numbers to make sure we were still waiting on probably about, we closed the window, we opened the window from, I believe, the beginning of January till the middle of March.
Mhm.
But most kids have done the secondary testing at this point. So I'm waiting on maybe like 25 kids that I'm hoping will get caught up before we send the reports home.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Don't they time out? Your kids
What do you mean?
time out if they don't take the test in a certain amount of days?
Once it started,
Oh,
they haven't started. Yeah, these are kids that were out for whatever
Yeah.
reason, and so they still need to go back and take it. Okay, so I'm aware that there have been a lot of issues that have come up around report cards, grading. There was a ton of misinformation out there, so I wanted to just come forward and share what the expectations have been, what has been set, and what hopefully clear up some of the misinformation. So one of the big pieces is the work study practices. How are they scored? They are scored on a common 4-point rubric. That has been the case since 2019. That was the very first thing that we did as a grading and reporting committee when I came on board. So we have a common 4-point rubric. It's common for each building, but the actual the skills are common across buildings so that they're reflecting the work study, the sample work study practices rubric that the state has issued. They should appear on the report card as a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1 based on the rubric. Now, I'm going to be right up front and honest and say that we have had a number of issues this last marking period with the way people have inputted the grades. And we have it set up so that it is a work study practice grade. It shows up on the report card as a 4, 3, 2, 1. It shows up in all of the systems with the exception of a really, really far back page as a 4, 3, 2, 1. I learned today that it may show up on the app, the front screen of the app, as an A, B, C, or D, which is incorrect. That is incorrect. But if you click on the standards, that's where you will find the 4, 3, 2, 1. However, because there have been issues with the way it has been inputted and inconsistencies with the way it's been inputted, for some people, they are showing up as 100, a 75, a 50, and a 25. We have run report after report after report to make sure that that's not impacting, it's not set up to impact academic grades. We have run all sorts of trials to make sure it's not impacting academic grades. So those scores at 4, 3, 2, 1, or if you are seeing a 75, a 50, it has no impact on the students' academic grades. It's only a reflection of their behaviors and study habits.
Is that meeting expectation, approaching expectation?
I'll show this.
Okay,
I have the next slide is the actual rubric. So my message to, I'm working with Andrea to try and figure out how we can make sure this doesn't show up for next semester. But the other piece to this is we know there are big changes coming from Power School. So to go back in and reformat right now with a huge change coming over the summer, I'm not sure if it is appropriate time, like time-wise, if that's where we want to be spending our time. So if you see the percentage, disregard it. There is not a percentage attached to it. It should not show up there. If you see it, please ignore it. Look at the 4, the 3, the 2, the 1. This
in middle school like 4 years ago. Didn't we have this in middle school before?
we have it in all 3 buildings. We have it in all 3 buildings.
We have this too. Got it.
So The work study practice rubric, this was approved, like I said, before the start of the 1920 school year. This is the CHS one. You'll see at the end of this presentation, I actually have the other ones linked. I just wanted to show an example so that you could see each one of those 4 work study practices, the respect, the character, the courage, and the responsibility, get a score on that 4-point scale. Okay. So, key takeaways. The work study practices are behaviors, they're separate from academics, and they are not part of any percentage grade calculation. Okay? I can't make that any clearer. And it's not just that we don't think so, it's that we have gone in and run every possible combination to make sure that they are not in some way, shape, or form sneaking in there.
It's like the comments section of a report.
Correct.
They're
It's your, I think
separate.
back in my day, it was the effort grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on the app and I'm seeing numbers. I'm seeing
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So
Well,
in the standards column, right? If you look at the regular, if you look at the front page, do you see an A, B, C, D? If you're looking at assignments.
Oh.
the main screen when
Yeah.
you log in. Yeah.
Okay.
That's their
That's
Dashboard, yeah.
yeah. So the dashboard, depending, it does show up on some of the dashboard, but if in this, you have to look at it through the standards page.
Right.
And the reality is that practice was in place last year too. We were aware of that last year, and just told parents and teachers that they have to look at the rubric, the 4-3-2-1. There wasn't a way for us to.
So is I'm assuming something has gone out to if teachers are entering it wrong or in the wrong place or something like that, we've made those corrections.
Yes. So we have, we've put out to both secondary buildings the instructions with the clarifications on the things that really are the keys. And the biggest one being that we have a category for work study practices. So when we are entering work study practices, they should not be put in as a formative assessment. Formatives don't count in the grades. So it's, again, not impacting the grade, but it shows up differently on the reports.
the challenge I had with the makeup day, the
Competency
recovery, is that none of these had any numbers on them. So I had no idea if my kids were not like meeting or if they were meeting.
For their overall class grades?
No, for these.
For the work
these
study
standards.
For the work study practices?
So I just was confused about that.
So those aren't competencies.
Those aren't
They're not competencies. They're
They would not
behaviors.
Right.
Those are the behaviors
I
that
know they're not graded on them, but I wasn't sure if, okay.
So that would be a red flag too, that one of your kids gets a 2, that it's a problem? It wouldn't be done at the end of the semester before competency recovery?
What do you mean?
Those wouldn't be put in?
Those are grades on the report card.
They're grades on the report card.
Yeah, so you don't know like how your
But
progress is, so-
it's not these are not graduation
Yeah.
Right.
requirements. They're not graduation competencies. It
Okay.
really is, for lack of a better term, a behavioral score. It's, is your kid doing their homework? Are they paying attention in class? Are they coming on time? Those are the things that the teachers are looking at. Are they completing work on time? Are they being cooperative with the teachers and the other kids in class? The work study practices are those behavioral pieces. In a competency system, those have all been removed from the academic grades.
They're still graded. They're just in a different
Correct.
place. Yeah.
Correct. Okay. So one of the other things that has come up is the idea of the rolling grades. So I wanted to explain a little bit why we do rolling grades and what it helps us to be able to do. So we know students learn at different paces. We also have year-long competencies. Our competencies do not change September to June. What changes is the content through which they are demonstrating their ability to apply those competencies. So during the course of the year, the content gets a little bit more advanced and a little bit more advanced, but we're still asking them to be able to analyze information. We're asking them to be able to use that content to demonstrate their ability to apply those skills. The rolling grades really allow the teacher to collect the data for the entire year. So, you have a lot of situations where a kid might not understand how to analyze a text in September. But hopefully during the course of the year, as the texts change and get more advanced and they get more practice with it, by the end of the year, they are competent at doing that. So it gives our teachers the opportunity to take a more holistic look at the students' progress in those specific competencies. It also allows students more time to gain deeper understanding and ability to apply the skills that are actually in the competencies. So what does it look like? I pulled these actually are pulled right from Power School. So this is looking at a particular competency score range from, you can see the dates at the bottom, 923 to 127. So the summative assessments for this particular competency for this student average out to be about a B+. But as a teacher, I'm looking at that and saying, okay, what happened on the 9th? What happened on the 25th? And I'm looking, they never turned that paper in. So that 9th, that really doesn't reflect their competency, but it reflects work ethic. D, what happened there? Oh, they had stayed up all night. Okay, maybe I need to encourage them to take a reassessment, whatever it might be. So this is really good information for the teachers to see and to be able to see the progress, as we go through the course of the year. If we look at the next one, this was a more, I was looking for samples that show that more growth progress. And this one jumped out at me in the other way. So if I'm a teacher looking at this for the course of, this is, again, from September 23rd to February 7th, this is a good solid A- B+ student in this competency until the 27th.
But Mary, I'm going to jump in right there. I can tell you that my son is not taking 8 competencies, 8 summatives by whatever that is, February 7th. That's where I find the problem.
So that's a problem.
It is a problem. That's why I taught me field geometry, because they only count the summatives.
But this is an actual teacher's grade book, and those are only summatives that are in there.
But they have 8. Most of my sons has like 3.
That's a conversation that needs to be had with the teacher in the building. Because
Liz, that's worrisome if it goes
Yeah.
back to
Correct.
September 23rd with only 3, right? I mean,
these are these are two different teachers, just so you know. That's two different.
There's 9, and I think
This is high stake testing when you have less than 9.
But that's not the district policy. The
No.
policy,
Right.
the four.
We're
four
trying
per-
to make sure
Right.
that I will tell you that at CHS, and they are the only ones who have had a practice in place long before I started here, it is 4 summatives per competency per quarter.
And that's not. I mean,
That's not something I made up. That is something that came from, my understanding is came from staff and is supposed to be their practice.
But
Geometry.
So
you only had 3 in geometry.
but here's the problem,
Not this
Liz.
geometry.
That's not,
Who's following up to make sure they have enough?
that should be on the building administration, the
and
school-based
honestly, if a
administration.
parent sees that should be brought
Correct,
to the
and we'll
attention.
talk about that a little bit more too.
Honors geometry this year, 12 summatives thus far.
Thus far.
Yeah.
That's good. Are they graded by 4? Because
No,
the
they're
math,
grades.
They don't get retakes. They get half credit.
No, they don't. That is misinformation. That was addressed, and they have.
Oh, they took care of that.
That was addressed back in October when it was
That was
brought to our attention. It was addressed. They were told they have to follow the policy. Can they still have kids do corrections as part of that process, absolutely. That's a good habit to
How
get
did it
kids
go
into.
on that long? How did they beat to their own drum for so long before you were even here?
Liz, I think part of it is the messaging is clear, but sometimes people just don't hear it. They go rogue, whatever you want to call it. And when we find out about it, and again, it's
I just want consistency across.
As
the board.
do I.
And that's
That's
what
what
they're
we're
trying to
at.
do. That is
Yeah.
everything that I have been pushing since I came on board here.
but it's
the
following
problem
the
is-
chain of command.
Correct.
Straight to the teacher, then to the principal, then to bring it forward to me if you need to. But I'd like to think it never gets past the principal level.
Correct. And the
It
problem
certainly
is
shouldn't be a board
right.
complaint either. It should be really addressed at that low level.
But I'm an educated person who understands all this. Joe Public has no idea what any of this means. I think we need to have another.
Or that it's bad that there'd be only 3. Like, that it's
So that's-
bad that there's only
That is
3.
why I am here tonight.
Yes. I'm not beating
Okay.
you up. I'm just.
You are beating me up. Stop.
Simmer down, you two.
I do think, you look at this and this just shows the reason why you have to have multiple summatives, right? Because
Oh,
to
absolutely.
Mary's point, this is an AB kid who all of a sudden something occurred at the end of
Right.
January. COVID positive, death in the family,
Anything.
something's
Right.
going on there. And it's like, so now all of a sudden, if you're doing straight averaging, the kid is a C minus.
Right.
And
Which is why this is a tool that's at the fingertips of the staff in Power School. So we are working with them and have been since I found this probably back in October on it, getting them to look at these charts, getting them to look at the trends and not just look at the straight average.
So they can't retake a summative till they do all their formatives. Maybe that's my school. I'm getting them all. Like,
Well,
you
and
can't-
that's
Yeah.
a teacher's discretion, right?
It's just
Liz,
right now it's teacher discretion. We are working on shoring up that policy.
And I'm going to frame the
reporting.
question a little bit differently.
Okay.
Are you ready for the summative? Are you ready for the second summative and the retake, right? So that could involve formatives. It could involve other stuff. But the point is, if all I keep doing, and this is where a lot of schools fall into the pitfall on competencies, try again tomorrow, try again tomorrow, try again tomorrow. Well, what have you done to get ready for it?
Right.
If you take your driver ed test and you bump into the curb and you never practice it and you go the next day hoping you don't bump into a curb, you might get your license, you might not.
I look at it as a language piece, and this has been something that I've been stressing with our grading and reporting. We are not writing a retake policy because it's not about the retakes. We are
About the learning.
we are doing learning plans for reassessment, and we have to get out of that mentality of I'm just taking it again, because that's not what it's about. That's not what a competency-based system is based on. We want the students to be able to find a way to demonstrate their proficiency in those
If they choose
skills,
to.
if they choose to.
Right.
And what I've seen fail is when, kids will come in and they're like, I'm not ready for the test, but I'll just take it because I can retake it anyway. That defeats the purpose. It's like you should be taking it because you're ready, you're confident, you know that you're going to perform your best. I would rather kids say to me, I'm not ready to take this. Schedule a future time for you. But that's me. You good, Mary, on this?
I'm
side?
good.
All right.
So key takeaway, rolling grades allow us to better identify growth, trends, and anomalies in student comprehension. And that's why that is such an important piece for us. It shifts the idea of grades from just looking at the individual grades to looking at the student growth holistically. And that's really, that's our goal. We want to see the kids grow and develop and become more proficient.
So what I'm getting from that is that competency recovery can be and maybe should be ongoing. So if you have a student like that who is an A minus, B plus student, and then all of a sudden not yet met, then that's a signal that something
Correct.
has to be adjusted, or the student needs support, or something has to happen in order to make those get back up
Correct.
to that.
And the
That's
reality is, you're absolutely right. Competency, you can't call it competency recovery. Competency support, competency practice, that should be going on during the course of the semester. And that's something that we've been talking and stressing I have been with the administrative team at the high school specifically, because
can't
that's
do it,
where it really
Because
applies.
that's where we were getting complaints for the competency recoveries at the end of the year during the summer was you go and you spend an hour, you do an assignment, and now you're competent.
Right.
So that doesn't go along with the rolling grades and the
No.
So you
trend.
blow off school for 9 months and just,
Right.
And we stopped that practice.
Yes, we
because
did.
that was not
Right.
Correct.
good pedagogy. That
Mhm.
was not good.
And how can they?
All right.
Formative and summative assessments. This is another piece that we are getting hung up on. And this is really getting back to some of the things that you've been asking about, Liz, in terms of what do we do? How do we handle it? So formatives are a checkpoint to inform instruction. They're more content focused than competency focused. They're what we would traditionally call practice. They tend to be lower depth of knowledge. They're that more recall, identify, recognize, and they're the stepping stones to success on the summative assessment.
A quiz.
Mhm.
I don't know why they can't be graded. That's my bottom line.
Summatives.
Excuse me.
A summative is a summary demonstration of learning. It directly assesses the competencies. It transfers knowledge to a new setting or application. It must include higher depth of knowledge, so that analyze, synthesize, evaluate, create, those have to be present in a summative assessment. And it should be scored on a competency-based rubric, because in a summative, we are scoring against the competencies. In the formatives, we tend not to.
And some of it could be a paper, a poster, or anything. It doesn't have to be.
Would you like to do my paper? So some examples.
I'm psychic.
Exit tickets, homework problems, basic comprehension questions, in-class practice, some quizzes. There are definitely quizzes that should count as summatives.
What?
Yes.
So they can count them as some.
If you give a quiz that is competency based, that is higher order thinking, it can count as a summative, absolutely.
What's the difference between a quiz and a test?
Which is longer.
Exactly. That's typically, when I gave a quiz, it was 5 questions and a test was 20 questions. But
Executive branch, judicial branch, whatever the other one is. Those are quizzes, and it leads up to a test.
But if you have a more in-depth 5-question quiz,
That is,
it
and
could
again,
be a summative.
that really is focused on and is graded on the competencies. The problem is that for a lot of us, our quizzes are content. We don't have competencies that say students will know the capitals of every state. That's not a competency. That's not a skill that we are looking to. Is it content that we want the kids to know? Sure. It's not a skill that we are looking for them to be able to apply. And it really is that transfer piece. So quizzes can be formative. Some quizzes can be summative. Again, it depends on how they're being scored and what they're actually getting at. Word puzzles, writing vocab definitions, reading logs, study guides. Those are all things that are helping kids to get to the point that they're going to be able to apply those skills. What are examples of summative assessments? Lab reports, tests, projects, essays, performances, anything that gets at that application of your competencies and is graded on your competencies. Okay.
Just on the quiz thing, because I did a 1-question daily quiz that was it was a chemistry class. It was relative to kind of dimensional analysis, factor label, problem solving.
Yep, you lost me.
I did that all year long. And when you get to stoichiometry, you need to know how to do that. So you start off basic and you just drill on that skill throughout the entire year. And you gradually up the ante on the type of question you're asking. It's 1 question. It took 3 minutes at the start of every class. But I could absolutely follow a kid's progress, and their ability to track that against the competency, problem-solving competency was, that would count as a summative in the grand scheme. And
One summative?
Well, you have to figure out how exactly you factor that in, right? So, but the point being, it's something as simple as that. If it's tied to the competency, then the summative category, I think, is what applies.
So one of the other big pushes, I mean, I those formative assessments, we know that they're not calculated in the grade because they're not. I mean, that is your, oh, I did my homework, check 100%. That's how our grades get skewed. But they should be appearing in the grade books because that is how, as a parent or as a student, you can see and track your progress. If you are doing well on your formatives, you should do well on your summative. If you're not doing them and then you tank the summative, the question shouldn't be, oh my God, how did I not get that? On the flip side, if you don't do your formatives and you do really well on the summative, my question back to the teacher is, was that formative work necessary for that student? Probably not. So it's not a one size fits all. So this is actually something that I shared with teachers. I added this in. I shared this with teachers 2 summers ago, but I added it in late today. General rule of thumb, if it directly ties to the competencies and is done independently by the student, and I don't necessarily mean they have to be the only person working on it, but the teacher has to be able to independently score the student on those competencies. That can be considered a summative. If it doesn't directly tie to a competency, it should be considered a formative. If it receives a grade based off of a demonstration of proficiency in a skill, it might be considered a summative. If it's based on completion or participation, it should be a formative.
Can you give an example of the third and fourth?
Sure. I'm an English teacher and my kids just finished up reading Macbeth. So we have a summative where I give them a short essay and I want them to read the essay and compare the themes to the essay to what they learned from reading Macbeth and write a 5-paragraph essay on it. That would be graded off of, we have a reading competency and we have a writing competency. So that's how that would be scored. Okay. Based on completion or participation, that is, you signed your syllabus. You did, I gave you guys a word search to do. I asked you to bring in 25 flashcards so that we could play a game in class. Those should not be counting towards a grade. So the key takeaway, and this key takeaway really is for parents and students. If you see something listed as a summative and you're not sure why, you should go directly to the teacher and ask them to explain the assignment and its connection to the competencies. That's the best course of action. So if you are looking at your child's grade and it says, again, we are geared more towards secondary, which is why I specifically am talking secondary at this. With elementary, spelling tests are, it's a different level. But word search on chemistry terms. Sorry, Mike. As a parent, my question would be, how is that a summative?
I never did a word search ever.
I did them in Spanish all the time for practice of vocabulary.
Right.
I would make the kids define the words and then find them.
Different.
But it would never have been a summative.
Never.
So you're telling me all the formatives should be on Power School?
Yeah,
Or
I just
in the
looked.
teacher's grade
One
book?
class does not have
They should.
of the year.
Formatives should be appearing on Power School. They are not consistently.
So go back to the definition. The purpose is to inform. It informs 2 people. The teacher and the student him or herself, right? So, I mean, recording it there is information that I think ought to be
Correct.
available to
Correct.
the student and the parent.
We also do have teachers that still use an old school
Gradebook.
grade book. So
So Liz,
again,
what I
if
would-
you're looking at your kid's grade and there are no formatives in there and you want to know how they are doing on their formatives, reach out to the teacher.
And say, I want to see your grade book.
Say, I'd like to know how they're doing on their formatives. I don't see any in Power
I
School.
just want consistency. It's not consistent among the teachers.
Yeah.
And I'm just talking
And
about in any
until
of the schools.
here's the reality, until
I'm not blaming you.
we've come up with some of those definitions, and B, we have people paying, we have administration, teachers, and parents paying attention to it. It's not going to be. It can't be. The reality is I can't be policing all 3 buildings to make sure that they are following the rules at all times.
And honestly, Liz, there are always going to be some, I mean, teachers have individual styles and
Oh,
approaches,
absolutely.
right? So,
Mhm.
but I can't say my individual style is one big summative at the end. That's all I'm going to ever record. I mean, that goes against the expectations, right?
Right.
But within there, you're going to have some fluctuation that takes place.
But for mine, it looks like it's happening more often than it's not.
And I think what you'll find is it's happening more this year than it was last,
Right, yes.
as we're adjusting to.
There are a lot
So,
more summaries
and
this year.
there's more encouraging them to do that, getting them to understand why that's important. And so it's a process. It is a process. It's not going to happen, and we're not going to get that consistency overnight. We just have to keep pushing it and keep having the conversations and keep addressing it on all levels. All right, so there are a number of other questions and concerns that have come up. Are we going to start using 4-point scale on our report cards? No. No. We will not do that until we've done a ton more training. We've had open discussions and input from teachers, students, and parents. I've been really clear all across with that. I am not going to just randomly flip a switch and have us on a 4-point scale. It won't happen. The other piece to that is we can't do it until we have competency assessments and rubrics built. And we don't have that yet. So please, everybody, take a deep breath. We are not going to start having 4-point scale report cards. We do at the elementary school. That's a completely different beast.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think some of it too is inconsistency. We have some teachers who are grading assignments on a 4-point scale.
But that's different.
Right.
That's different. You can grade assignments on a 4-point scale, and I'm encouraging teachers to do that. But it still translates to a percentage grade.
Mhm.
You're not going to get a grade at the end of the class that says a 4.321. You're going to get a 97.6 or whatever it is.
That was my next question is, are you going to see 175, 50,
No.
25?
No, the few teachers that are grading on a 4-point scale are converting it. So we'll talk about that. That's my next slide.
Because there's no alignment. So,
Right.
you know, a 3 out of 4 is a 75.
Mhm.
That is not the same as a 75%.
Out of
You
100.
answer 75
Okay.
questions correct out of 100. That it doesn't
It
equate.
doesn't
And
align
this is the
at all.
This is the problem because people automatically are saying 2 divided by 4 is 50.
Right. Right.
But a 2 it's a marginal, but it is a passing score.
Correct.
So it's not a 50 because that's a failing score.
Okay.
And so you're comparing apples to oranges on that.
Okay.
You have 2 different scales. The teacher has to say, what does this 2 tell me
Mhm.
Right.
about that student? And if it's that student is earning a C, then you have to force in the grade that earns a
Okay.
C.
And the few teachers that we have that are grading on a 4-point scale are doing that.
Still confusing to parents. Not your
We
fault.
talked about this quite some time ago.
But
I
it's
know.
not, maybe it's a 4-question quiz. It's the same thing.
But when parents, I think that's what people were saying is that they just thought it was a 4-point scale because that's what they see. Is that what you got out of that?
That's what I got out of the comments. Yeah.
But a lot of that focused on the work study practices. The work study practices have been on a 4-point scale since I came on board.
And what's hurting us is that, you know,
Those
we
aren't
have a
harder grades.
percentage-based system because that's how we're reporting.
Right.
So then when you put a standards-based grade in, it on the back end converts it to a percentage. But you shouldn't be doing that, right? And if we could
Right.
turn that off, if we could say,
We've turned
"Don't
it off
show this,"
every place that we can turn it off.
and it still shows up,
And it still shows up in some places,
but it's not.
but it's not what it is.
Right. It's not what it is.
So are we going to start using 4-point rubrics to grade assignments? That's the goal for assignments, because they have to be, we have to have
Formatives. Assignments, formatives. Is that what you're talking about?
summatives.
Or summatives? Okay.
Because
That's where the competence.
because that's where the competencies are. And we have to have common rubrics for the grade levels, for the standards, so that we're having that consistency, so that it's not the Wild West with it. However, it will be translated into a percentage grade based off of a conversion scale and not a straight up percentage calculation. When we get to that point,
But we're not there yet.
my goal was to get us there for the start of next year. I don't think we will be there across the board. But I can tell you that we have more teachers that are starting to use competency rubrics, which is a huge step, because the ones very often the rubrics that are still being used, if they're not the competency based rubrics, is the assignment need 5 points.
Right.
You know,
Right.
did you include 3 references? 5 points. That is not a competency based system. That doesn't tell me that a kid knows how to analyze a piece of text or write a convincing argument.
So my child's report card will say 3 out of 4 on a summative, 4 out of 4 on a summative, 2 out of 4 on a summative. And I'm supposed to do the conversion in my head.
You can't do the conversion.
It will
yet.
say under the assignment, they'll put it in, it will calculate to a percentage.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I don't want to see 4s. I can't do that.
based on the conversion scale.
Based on the
So,
conversion scale.
All right.
3 might not equal a 75.
3 will not equal a 75. Okay, I can say that right up front. A 3 will not
But
equal
also
a
they
75.
mean different things, right? It's not how many points you scored. It's I can do this independently. I understand it. I
Correct.
can apply it. and,
Correct.
you know,
So you're going to see, that's where that conversion scale is going to be so important, because it's the choices are not necessarily only going to be a 1, 2, 3, or 4. You're going to have kids that score, they're really in some of the standards, they're at a 4, but some of the standards they're at a 3. So, or 3 of the standards they're at a 3, but 5 of them they're at a 4. So we're in the middle there somewhere. And that's,
And this goes back to too, before the end all was the test. I got an 87 on the test. But that means that some things I might have gotten a 4 on because I aced all these aspects of the competencies, and other things I might have gotten a 2 on because I need help there. So yeah, I got an 87 on a test. I pass it, I move on.
Good, move
but I'm
on.
lacking skill. And so the competency is sort of like, what does the test tell me about these competencies? It's a whole different way of thinking about it. And that's the piece.
and
that
again,
we've gotta
and part
work
of
on.
this is it's trying to shift, and I say this, you guys have heard me say this, but it's trying to shift our culture. And it's not just, it's at all levels. It's kids, it's parents, it's teachers, it's community. But we have to start focusing more on what are the kids learning, and are we building the skills so that they are lifelong learners, and not are they going to be able to get an A+. And that's a problem. It's a problem when we are focused more on whether or not they're getting a 99, or whether or not they actually understand the content and the skills to be able to move forward.
And I remember seeing that in the classroom. You'd hand the test back, right? And there were kids who got a 90 and were very dissatisfied, right? And it turned into more of a point thing than, well, what don't I know? And then I had kids who, their rallying cry was D means diploma. And the minute you start going over it, it's like, I'm not going, I got a D, I'm good. I'm getting to a diploma. I'm on my pathway. So, but you got a lot of learning to do, kiddo, right? And so it's shifting that conversation around, what does this inform us? What does this tell us about your knowledge?
and that requires more teaching and learning, for the teachers, for the
Correct.
students, and for the parents too.
Correct.
So that we're
Across
all
the
on same
board. This
page.
is
Right.
it's a, I met with the CFs yesterday, and I actually went through some of this, and we talked about that, and it was kind of mixed. Like, well, but I have to teach them to be prepared for college. Yes, but they have to. But in the long term, in their life, whether it's college, whether it's trade, you have to be willing to do that learning and understand how to do that learning on your own.
So I was highly skeptical about this all last year because what you're talking about there, they're just that the practice and the learning and the formatives not being graded. My kids had a tough time with that, but I think it was such a hard transition for them initially. And this year, entirely different. Like they figured it out. And so my hope is that, by this starting at an earlier age, there's not that all of a sudden you don't have to do your homework,
Right.
which I think that's what it was last year.
I think a lot of it too is as we get more and more comfortable with it, it's about how you run your classroom. I think back to, I taught Spanish the first 3 weeks of school. I didn't put a grade in. None of it was summative. I didn't have any kids not do the work. I might have had one. And they knew that. They'd ask, is this formative or summative? I'm like, this is formative. We're just getting to know one another. We're just getting to learn. And it was all in Spanish. I didn't have kids not doing the work. But you have to make it comfortable enough to be able to say, if you don't get it, if you don't understand it, let's work on it. And that's a big part of it. So we're making strides there. I know that is a big concern. But again, it's conversations in the classroom. It's conversations at home when you're seeing that none of the formatives are getting done. Why is that? And if the reality is it's too easy for them, then how do we address that? All right. So this literally is a rubric that I've been putting through the process. So you'll see the competency up there, it's draft. Nobody's using this. This is, so our competency for textual analysis is analyze, evaluate, and interpret complex literature and informational text individually and collectively in order to better connect with the world around us. Now, I highlighted informational text because this rubric is for evaluating this competency specifically for informational text. Why? Those standards that are down the side are the 9-10 span informational text standards. So
And they keep going.
And they keep going. Now, that with all of them there is a great way for me as a teacher at the end of the semester or the end of the year to say, where are they overall? But for individual assignments, I know that I'm focused on standards 1, 2, 3, and 4 in this particular assignment that I'm doing right now. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to get rid of the other standards because that's not my focus area for right now. The bottom part, if you look at the next page where it says look fors, that's where I'm going to get specific to what am I looking for this particular assignment, for this particular summative. So what I couldn't do because my formatting kept getting all screwed up this morning was when they're done, those standards will be under all 4. So that a teacher can literally look and highlight where the kids are with those standards based on that particular summative.
Mary, just 2 things. So this looks complicated because it's sort of like the whole course is
Correct. Correct.
You're scaffolding as you go along by selecting.
Correct.
Does the student know what you're asking?
They should.
So that's not a mystery.
Right. The goal is that these, once they are drafted and once we have them across the board, that this is not going to be an uncommon document for kids to understand. They're going to be using it in classes. They're going to see it for assessments. Same thing with parents. These will eventually be linked into PowerSchool so that a parent can look and see what are those standards.
And the teacher will write why you got a 3, why you got that. Yeah, that would be helpful.
So, but again, we are beginning this process.
You might not get a narrative assignment by assignment, but in the end.
Yeah. Okay, where do I go if I have questions on grading? And this really is of the utmost importance. If I can have people walk away with one thing, it's where do I go? So if you have questions that are specific to a class, an assignment, you have to go to the teacher. If you come to me, I know people get frustrated, but I'm going to tell you to go to the teacher first. I can't answer those individual class questions, individual assignment questions. Go to the teacher, have that conversation. Find out. You might see a word search as a summative, but when you actually talk to the teacher, find out that it's something completely different that they probably should have titled differently. For building-based grading questions, and this gets back to the consistency, or questions about how many summatives should teachers have, because I'm seeing it different in each building. Go to the school administration. Okay. By the end of this year, we will have a clear document that will outline what those expectations are. We just don't have it. It's just not there yet. And they are different department to department and building to building.
Right
So you're
now.
getting there right now.
Okay. But the
You're
goal
getting
is to
there.
have it consistent.
The goal is to have it consistent at least through building to building.
Okay.
I'm not going to say consistent K to 12 because it doesn't make sense.
Yep.
For district-wide questions, if you have questions on competency-based education, if you have questions on what does it look like, what do the rubrics look like, what does an assessment look like, are we looking to make changes to the consistency across the board, come talk to me. Those questions, those district-wide grading questions should come to me. Okay. And no, if you come to me for some of the other, I'm not going to ignore you, but I'm going to send you back to the right person.
It's true. She did.
So, couple resources right here. I've given a number of presentations to the board and to the community on competency-based grading. They're all linked up on the website. One of my goals when I can get it going is to actually make them into videos so that they're a little bit easier to watch. Hopefully I will find somebody else to narrate them so you don't have to look at my ugly mug. PowerSchool help page. This is really important this is the student and parent help page. It's on our website. That's the link to it right there. Everything that you need to know about PowerSchool is there. And if it's not, you just got to let myself or Andrea know, and it will get up there. It's a really comprehensive page. So if you're not seeing something, if you're not sure where to go to access something, you will be able to find it there. The other piece is the work study practice rubrics. I used you saw the CHS one in the actual presentation, but that will link you to all three of them. The GMS one, the LMS one, and the CHS one. Now, we are trying, and this is going to be a summer project, but we are trying to revise those to better reflect our portrait of a learner traits. At this point, I was ambitious hoping that we would get it done this year, but I'm not thinking that we'll get it done by the end of the year. So that may look a little bit different coming into the next school year. And that is it. All right, beat me up, Liz.
So, when you guys get this all straightened out, you're gonna go to PowerSchool and ask them to configure the right things that we need fixed, the glitches that you can't find.
Yes,
Yeah.
Andrea does that almost on a daily basis
Oh, I'm
for
sure.
us. But there are things that we find because as PowerSchool updates,
Mhm.
things change on the back end. So sometimes it's just a matter of we didn't know something changed. We had it set up the right way. It changed. We now have to go back and find where it changed and fix it. The other big piece is we know that there is going to be some major overhaul to Power School over the summer. So we're right now, a lot of Andrea's focus is on what is that going to look like? How do we make sure that that is set up right? And how do we start training to make sure that we're ready to go for the start of the school year?
And in my mind, Liz, like we've had conversations, and I'll say if Power School just provides a switch to users, you can do this or this, like a switch that toggles it one way or another.
Your Power School looks different from my Power School, very different.
Right.
And
We're actually having those conversations on the back end. We are trying really hard to get some of those things that it's not doing or it changed on us to get changed back so that we can, but again, we are one school district with a massive.
Yeah, you're talking a big national SIS, and you're talking, honestly, the people we're talking to now are like the third person in the chair since we adopted Power School.
Yeah.
So, things that we might have been told, or, hey, we can make this, that person's long gone. So like any company, they've had turnover, and the COVID hasn't been kind to Power School people either. So it's just.
So we are looking
time
to try and patch what we can now,
because
the focus right now is a little bit more on looking ahead to next year, because a lot of these problems that we're dealing with now will not exist next year.
to the layperson, 2 out of 4 is 50%.
Correct. Which is why
Yeah,
I will
right.
bang this drum.
Yep.
Work study practices, do not look at, if there's a percentage, ignore it. It has nothing to do with the percentage. There shouldn't be one.
I'm talking about the summatives, 2 out of 4.
You won't see that in a lot of,
Okay, good.
you won't see that yet in a lot of classes.
Okay, good.
And by the time that becomes common practice, there will be
Dialogue.
there will be a clear delineation that will be out.
Awesome. Because it's just, okay, I'm done, Brian.
Is it possible to kind of issue or send out like, this is what has changed? This is, I mean, I think a lot of it is, a lot of the confusion is because of the inconsistencies that we see. Because
And
we
that's
don't
it.
have-
That's it. The issues that we're dealing with right now are because of inconsistencies. And I know part of the reason that I met with the CFs, and I'm going to meet with the team leaders at LMS as well, is so that they had these answers and can understand and make sure that the teachers have these answers. Because I can say it until I'm purple. And these are not things that are new. They are not things that we haven't talked about at all levels. But we have leadership structures in our buildings. And I have to be able to rely, and Jen and Bill have to be able to rely on those teacher leaders to be able to lead their teams and their departments as well, to be able to, so that the question doesn't come up. And I said this straight to the CFs yesterday. When a parent comes and says, why is it showing up as a 75? And you say, I don't know, we're back to square one. Like, that isn't something that should not be known.
Can you explain the equal weighting and the point structure in Power School? Because different assignments are weighted with different points.
Different assignments
Then
are
the
different assignments are scored with different points.
Correct.
But within each, our grades are made up of the competencies weighted equally.
Oh, okay. All right. Right. The competencies are weighted equally.
Which is where I know that is a point of confusion, which is why if we can transition summatives to being on that 4-point scale, it will give us that consistency. We will no longer have a 200-point assignment, a 10-point assignment counting for the same. Okay, that's really why I'm pushing to make sure that we can get the competency rubrics done to be able to provide us more consistency in how we are scoring our summative assessments.
I think what's confusing as a parent is I used to be able to figure out, like, okay, I had 10 assignments and, you just take the average of them. Like, I can't figure out the math on this.
But it's
like,
not
I
about,
look
but,
at a grade. I look at, okay, so I looked at honors geometry has 12 assignments. There are 2 competencies, but I don't know which assignments are counting toward one or
When you
Are they
both.
summatives
when
or
you look
assignments?
at-
Summatives, oh.
When you look at Power School, you should have a standards option.
There
And if you
is.
look at the standards, that will give you the breakdown by the competencies. So you'll be able to see, you should be able to click on the competency and see what
Does.
assignments, what summatives are tied to that competency and what the scores are for it.
I think the mobile app is very limiting.
The
Yeah,
app
that's
is limiting,
true.
the app, and I will say that. I will say that publicly.
Yeah.
I encourage parents to look at Power School on the computer.
Yeah, see, it doesn't. So I only see the 2 standards here. I don't see any grades behind the standards.
If you
here.
click on the standard, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It
So
is
if you're
very
only
limited.
using the app, you're not getting the full picture.
Correct.
Right. That's
You,
the
it's a lot easier, and you get a much more robust picture of the student progress and how they're doing in the individual competencies by looking at it on the website.
I think it's like many apps, like that's the quick look up, that's the quick feel, the
Right.
overall. But then if you really want to dig in, you need the bigger screen.
Yeah.
And it's just the reality of it.
Can we plan some opportunities to answer parent questions and
I won't come, I
educate, kind of
promise.
review, educate exactly? I mean, this is new to, I would say, most parents who, grew up in a traditional grading system.
So the goal was to be able to have building-based sessions.
Yeah.
The consistency is what has kind of put the brakes on that a little bit.
But maybe by next year's parent-teacher meetings.
Yeah, that is my goal, is that by the start of next year, when we are rolling this, that we can do that. Until between now and then, it's my goal to continue to provide information like this, to get it out on the website, to get it out.
Build consistency.
And honestly, it is a building based
Mhm.
because it is different between the 3. So I think we need to support the school administrators on how to do this.
Correct.
All right. Any other comments or questions for Mary? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary.
Stay sitting here, or do I have to go back?
No, and I sent you a text.
That brings us to
Test or
Corey's-
quiz?
Yeah. BA's report.
Weird. Up, Corey, you are muted, sir.
Trying to figure
You
out
are now,
I am.
you are
trying to
now
figure out what his
unmuted.
background is.
We already talked about the MLP and the RFP going out for that. We are hoping by the end of this week, we have 8 banks, 8 loaning institutions that have expressed interest. Originally, we had sent out 8. TD Bank did back out because of the term, but then Dick Henry and myself received an email from another institution as well. So we went back up to 8. So hopefully, with this competitive process, we'll get a decent rate. And I believe that when we receive it and we choose to go with one of them, we'll be able to lock in a rate. So hopefully they'll be reasonable. I provided year-to-date financials, not much of a difference from the last meeting. And you will see on the food service that we're up around the $80,000 mark in fund balance. So things continue to be positive on that front, and hopefully that will continue throughout the year. What has helped is that the rate of reimbursement for free and reduced meals were being reimbursed at the free rate. Those were increased as of January 1st. So we are receiving more money from the government than we were for the first half of the year. And I just want to mention, I completed the last pieces of the audit finalization today. I provided that to the auditors, so they should be issuing within the next couple of weeks. I should be able to bring the representation letter, the letter to governance, and at least a digital copy of the financial statements by our next meeting in March. That's really all I have for tonight. If there's questions for me.
I just have a question on one of the folders. They're both paid to NEA. One is for, I take it, the teachers, and one is for the support staff, but all the individuals, it's all redacted. I just wondering why and what this is.
Can you hear that? Okay.
No, I'm trying to.
So in one of the folders of the manifest, there are two payments. Two payments to NEA. One seems to be for LEA, the other for LSS, but it's got redacted individuals' names on it.
Okay.
And I don't know what it's for.
Those
To be honest, I did not see I was not in the office today, so I did not see the manifests. But I can review
Wanna
that
hold it up?
tomorrow when I'm in the
Pass
office
it.
and take a look at it.
I think what it is.
It's because the social security is listed on there, so
Maybe
that's
the
it.
social security numbers were
Yeah.
blacked
So
out.
Corey, it's this sheet.
Okay.
And so all the names and social security numbers are redacted.
Yes.
But we've got their gross. So this is like a payroll run, including the employee deduction for the dues, I think is what it is.
Yeah, that's probably it. And that's probably those reports that come out of the payroll system for the deductions include social security numbers on them. So that's probably the information that most importantly redacted.
Brian, I think the question I have is, isn't it always like this? Or maybe we do have a new payroll person. So I wonder
Right,
if
that's what I'm
they
wondering.
over redacted perhaps because you've never asked it before.
Possible.
But we'll check into that. But I think
Okay.
it is it adds up to the dues so that we can send them the dues.
Right.
Voluntary contributions.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Corey? No, hearing none. We'll move on to, thank you, Corey. Committee report. Budget committee has not met. Well, we met after deliberative session, so I guess we did meet. We've met since then, haven't we?
So
it seems like
budget
forever
committee
ago.
met after the town deliberative and then
Yes.
re-voted on Article 6, which I think the
Yep.
board all
The
knows.
vote was 5-3. So
5-3,
that was-
which is huge.
Yeah, that's a positive vote for us.
And if I just may on budget committee, I am attempting to get budget committee members in another town that has done similar work to connect with our budget committee members. So rather than, because I think a volunteer budget committee member talking to a volunteer somewhere else makes the most sense. So I'm trying to make that a step.
About Article 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
About the solar.
Okay. Facilities improvement. We had a quick meeting to discuss the questions that the community has and how we should go about answering them. So there was a decision to, I'm hoping to have an interview with Mike and Jason Brennan to be put on Facebook to answer viewer questions. We have a mailer or an insert going out with the ballot explanations. I know that Charlie Needling was planning to put more information on the website, kind of subtract the extra stuff and focus on the frequently asked questions. I saw that he posted on Facebook today to have people send in their questions. So that was kind of, did you have anything to add?
It wasn't a quick meeting.
Well, no, but that was the one topic. It was a one topic
The
meeting.
intent was to be quick.
Yes.
Right, right.
There's a lot there. We're also meeting with LCTV. They were not able to broadcast the tour night. So we're going to replicate that tomorrow night, and then there'll be the tour available to the public. So the intent is for Dave to be there with his temperature gun to be able to show how things vary. And so we'll replicate. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be quite as cold, but that's okay.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be warmer tomorrow. Isn't it?
Just open the windows.
There you go.
Emergency management.
Friday.
It's Friday. Okay. Grading and reporting. We had a review by Mary. Did you have anything else to add, Tar?
No, just that.
Okay.
Next month, hopefully.
All right. Perk.
Oh, I did have one thing.
Yeah.
Can you just explain? Any teacher is welcome to come to grading and reporting. So it is their choice. It is the teacher's choice. So we can't control who comes or not, or
Correct.
which schools participate more than others.
We have every year we put out to each building that we want as much representation as possible. We have, I know, the high school's been inconsistent over the years, but we have a higher number of people from the high school on than we have since I came on board. Part of the struggle is I make sure to keep the remote links so that we can get as many people there as possible. But it's not always everybody there. And it's not always the right people that need to be there around the table. But they're open meetings for teachers, and that's been since day one. And I'm constantly trying to get the teachers on the committee to encourage other people to come and join us.
Wellness. Lauren and I set a date of, I don't think that this has gone out yet. I don't think the invite has gone out yet. I asked to be copied. But I think our next meeting is going to be March 8th. So just wanted to say that since we don't have a school board meeting in between then, but I think the email hasn't gone out to invite everybody yet.
Great. And town capital improvement?
Well, there was a meeting on 2/7. It was on the calendar.
Oh.
Then it was gone. And then I reached out to Troy and they decided to pull it. It was there just as a placeholder. So they're waiting for all the new boards to sit before they reconvene. So
Waiting.
hopefully,
Representatives.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Old business. Still. Current COVID situation update.
So let me just start with the summary. For the first time last week, we hit low in all schools in terms of the impact that we were seeing. And that's after shifting to the responsibility phase. So, the board made that action effective for the last 2 weeks, and our numbers have gone from medium to low. So, it is trending in the right direction. We're still under substantial spread by the definition. It's been substantial all year. But if you look at the numbers, they've really dropped quite a bit. And I pointed out to our team when we met, when I saw the 735, which is the Litchfield based number, I go down and I say, where do I most see that? I linked it to 746, so November 12th. So we sort of, you think about that curve and it's like, but what does that represent? We're back to November 12th numbers. And at November 12th, we were still, we were targeted still at the elementary level, and we were targeted at the high school and required at the middle school because they had their spike that had occurred in there, right? So, so I think we are in a decent spot. We will be meeting tomorrow. That's our meeting day, but you can see here that our numbers continue to be low. Remember, the board asked me, so what's normal attendance? And I said 2 to 4%. And look at our numbers. We're in the, ever since we came out of this 10% high, it's a little bit higher today.
It's a stomach bug. It's everywhere.
Exactly right. The stomach bug is what's going around now.
Yep.
So the problem is that, colds, it's also on the COVID symptom list, but that would happen in a normal year. When you go back to pre-COVID, the stomach bug goes around and your number goes up. So
Strep.
not anything unusual there. LMS. So they haven't done the colors. We'll fix that tomorrow. But basically, your numbers are still a little higher than we would like to see them be. But I suspect that is because of the stomach bug too. There are a few COVID positive students, but no staff. And at CHS, we do have a couple of COVID positive staff, and their percentages are pretty decent too. So that's what I have for current numbers.
Thank you. And you have the reopening plan. Do we need to discuss that further?
No, I
or-
just, a couple of things. I mean, I apologize to the community and the board. It took a long time to get out. I think if you think about the comments that came from our nurses, we really were working, like when we thought we had done this with clarity, then there were questions. They're on the front lines. They see the questions. They hear the parents. They're reacting to it differently than I am, to be honest. And so, but I want the board to understand that the admin team met, board action was taken on a Wednesday. We met later that week, I think.
We met Friday.
To do the first blush of, okay, what has to be touched here? Made touches, sent it to the nurses, got feedback. And
You
then,
did that after deliberative on Saturday.
Yep, I did
Right.
that was what I thought was the cleanup, right? And then it went forward. We ended up with the whole admin team one more time going at it. And honestly, it
And that
takes.
was not just because of the board action about the mask requirement. That was because the new toolkit came. from the state,
Correct.
right?
Oh, yeah. But all of it, it all
Right.
coincided, right? So we got the
Right.
new toolkit, which by the way, isn't a toolkit. It's a 3-page handout.
Right.
It went from a 50-page manual to a 20-page manual to a 3-pager. And so we had to figure out how to digest it and get it down. But the other action was accepting home tests, which was like,
right.
okay, how do we do that? What's the protocol? What's the procedure? How many home tests ought one to do? That all took conversation. So again, it took way longer than I expected it to.
Yeah.
And, but we got it done. It's out there. I think it's clear, although we had a question yesterday and then we cleared that up. So we're trying our best to stay on the front end of it.
Do we have home
They did
tests
COVID at the
now
same
to
time.
give to?
We do have home tests available.
We do.
So if there's a family who needs a home test, they can ask us and we can help out with that. We have access to home tests, but I haven't tested the envelope to find out like how many can I get.
They're a lot more readily available now. The last week or two, they got rid of the limits at CVS. You used to only be able to get 2 at a time. They're
I'm
selling
waiting
them.
for my government ones. Where are they?
I know.
I got mine yesterday.
I got
mine. Did you?
I got ours
So-
finally. The liquor store.
Liquor store has them.
Liquor store has them and they're the cheapest. I'm
Really?
not joking because they're not marking it up. So the same, Binax test
Yeah.
or
Oh, you
whatever.
got your state
One
ones
left.
at the liquor store.
No,
Is
no,
that what you're
no.
saying? Or
No,
extra?
you
Go buy
can
them.
buy them
Oh.
at their liquor store and they're at cost. So they're like $14 or $15 versus 23 or 24 at
Right.
CVS. So you can get them.
You can
at
sterilize
cost.
your
knew?
stuff while you're there.
That was the Sam's Club price also. They were
Yeah.
$14 at Sam's Club when they were 25 at CVS. So
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know I could get it at my local liquor store.
Well,
That's-
next time you're there,
Road trip.
COVID test.
And my insurance plan reimburses for the test
They do.
itself. So
Yep.
that's
I
don't
do
check your
pass
insurance
2
and
a
see
day,
what yours
right?
says. Right.
All
Well,
right.
Good.
And then I also gave a link to the quarantine and isolation protocols. So this chart, so that was the other piece was we thought we brilliantly got this into 5 columns. And then as the team started to meet over it, we're like, you know what? There's an unnecessary column in this now. And it just took talking it out before all of a sudden somebody's like delete and combine and make it even easier to follow. And then figuring out what needed to be put into this chart for clarity. It just took us extra time. And the other piece that we had missed was in the original version, it did not cover somebody who had COVID and then the natural immunity of 90 days. So we decided to say, you basically, too bad you got COVID, but you're kind of up to date for the 90-day window. And then you can get vaccinated or get boosters within there. But really, the concept of being up to date applies to somebody in that COVID 90-day window. And there was a lot of conversation about it because we know people who have gotten COVID a second time within that 90-day window. But when you trace it back to CDC guidance, that's what the guidance says.
It
So
follows the same as vaccinated.
it really does. They don't even want you to test again because they're saying you could test positive a second time just because you still have antibodies is my understanding of it. So it's kind of interesting to figure out where to put things and make it as clear as possible. So we did.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Policy BEDH.
So I'm going to give credit to Michelle for making most of this, but we're trying to capture where the board landed. So, and I just changed the link, Michelle, before the meeting. I think I updated it, or you did. I'm not sure which one of us did.
I know I
Highlighted
did.
one.
But if you're looking at this one with the green line on it,
Yeah.
Basically, Michelle had highlighted key things that were in here. Okay. The green line in this case is just an emphasis mark for the board because it already said this period may be extended by a majority vote of the board. So, we state in the policy that we have 2 15-minute periods for public to comment. and it may be extended by a majority vote. So that was there. So that's just emphasis, not a change. Item number 2 is the policy has never had the 3 minutes per person. That was sort of practice. That's what we verbally tell people. That's what a lot of boards tell people. We've now added it, and so it's in yellow because it's an add-in. And, we've had experiences before where somebody will say, I'm signed up for my 3. I'm just going to give my 3 back to the person. And that's really not the intent of it. The intent is somebody should be concise in making their comments, not have 3 people lined up behind them who are just going to give them their 3 minutes. So now they get to talk for 12. So we just wanted to be clear about that.
And the reason for that is that we want to hear from everybody and give out everybody. Can that be extended by a majority vote of the board?
The time period?
Yeah.
It doesn't say that in the policy right now. And then the other thing that is the new ad is clear.
In the law, it does tell you somebody can't delineate their time to somebody else, so it can be extended.
Right, but if someone is speaking, can the board have a vote to allow them to keep going?
I would think if there's nobody else here, people
Okay.
waiting to speak, in other words, because everybody should have a chance before that other person.
Right.
I think a person can make their point within 3 minutes.
I agree.
And I think, Tina, it's
It's a timeliness thing.
so it's board policy, and the board can not follow its policy. The board can say,
Okay.
here's what we're going to do
Mhm.
instead. I mean, that is always a possibility. But,
Exactly.
I would expect that to be talked out in advance. Like, somebody would say, listen, I really need 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And like, like they
Right,
come to you
right.
beforehand kind of thing.
Okay.
It's me out again.
The second highlighted piece is our attempt to clarify what we think we heard you say. So I'm going to read it out loud. During the first public participation session at the beginning of the agenda, members of the public shall limit comments only to those items appearing on the current agenda. So that people are saying, you're going to be discussing this tonight, and here's what I think. Right? So it really kind of focuses that to be agenda specific. The board will not entertain comments on items that do not appear on the agenda during this session. During the second public participation session, members of the public may address general concerns or suggest future agenda items. So somebody could say, I really think it's important that you visit blah, 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 right? And this ties directly into the next highlighted section, which is asking to be on the board's agenda. So our feeling was that if somebody's sitting here at the table saying, I'd like to see this on an agenda, that's 14 days out, because your meetings are always 14 days out. And now it's been heard, and it's up to the superintendent and board chair to determine, are we ready to do that? Do we need more time? What would that look like, et cetera? So it sort of aligns with somebody providing that input, and then how we go about. So notice in this case, the redacted stuff, the redacted words are what were there. The yellow is sort of the add-ins, and it is an adjustment from 7 to 14, so that we know where things are coming, but it becomes more of an I don't know if it's interactive, but it's just that people know they can come here and make that request. And then we added the header only for that last part, communication to individual board members, to just make it clear that you really shouldn't answer individually, because you're not answering as a board member.
Right.
So it has to be considered by the full board in order to have an answer, because you can't act independently. So did we capture it? Are there other changes or things that you want to see added in here?
I think you captured it. The only suggestion, and this is just I'm reading this and I think the intent is there, but I don't know if we want to be specific or not, is in that bullet point that says during the second public participation session, members of the public may address general concerns. Do we want that to say school-related concerns or district-related concerns? Because if somebody's coming in with a town issue to discuss with this, that maybe could borderline being I don't know.
I'm seeing if you go back up to the yellow highlighted area, that last sentence during a second public, take that sentence and add it to the paragraph down below that says members of the public can
I was
offer
just going to
comment.
say,
That should be the beginning of that paragraph.
Yep.
Yeah.
'Cause then it
okay,
covers it.
so take that last sentence and move it to the beginning of the other paragraph.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
it covers. 'cause
that
it
makes
says
it a
Yeah.
lot more
School policy
clear.
programs.
Yeah. I think it's just to kind of keep it related to what we actually
Because that's
can do
what,
anything
that's
about.
why
They
that
can't come in and-
paragraph is there, right?
Complain about the president.
Absolutely.
But if there's a capacity issue in the room, when there was the COVID issue with the capacity, we didn't have any control over that
Right.
at the time. But so
Makes sense.
I like that. All right.
Okay,
Perfect.
I don't remember where I read this, but there was one policy, maybe it was a school board example, but if somebody wants to speak to an agenda that was on the previous meeting, do you want that to be in the first
Second.
or
second
the
one.
second?
Yeah, because the
The
first
first
one
one
is going to be
pertains to-
about
Yes,
what we're
right.
talking about tonight.
This is a different is this the same policy where I remember reading something about, no expectation of responses to questions or comments on behalf of the board? Is that this policy or is that in a different one?
It should be at this policy.
Well, it's sort of in, so if here we added communication to individual board members, but if
Yeah.
you take that out and read it as originally written,
Yeah.
if questions are directed to, it doesn't really say the full board, right? So in the public participation comment, if questions are directed,
Mhm.
there's no expectation of answering those,
Right.
because the board hasn't.
Discussed
Discussed it
or
yet.
acted on it.
Right.
Right.
Years ago, before the new policy, excuse me, before the policy was revised by a previous board, it had no expectation of interaction. They took that out because just the flavor of the board at the time. So that's definitely, you're a different board. It's up to you.
I think it kind of sets the expectation, that we're not going to answer questions or respond to comments during the meeting, but
Well, read right after the green
yeah.
part up top, the next sentence. The segments are opportunities for the public to
Oh,
provide
okay.
information to the board. Board members may comment or respond as appropriate to concerns or issues that are raised. But again, you can't, it's the may, not shall.
Mhm.
And if you haven't discussed it yet, if it's on the agenda, the whole
Right.
point is, okay, thanks for your input.
Mhm.
The discussion will occur.
Right. Okay.
One other question I have for the board. Do you want to keep calling this community forum or do you want to call it community input?
I prefer input.
Because it's not a forum.
No,
Just their
I
input.
agree, but
Yes, that's a good
that was
point.
the other thing I wanted to bring up because the board before changed it to that. They thought it was a little more engaging, I guess.
Where do you see?
In the third paragraph from the top of the
It's not
first
engaging.
page.
Oh,
Yeah.
An advisory.
because on the agenda it's labeled community input.
I know. I just wanted to make it consistent with everything. Perfect.
Okay.
Does the board want to vote on this as a first reading or do you want to wait till the next meeting?
That's what I was going to do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's my job.
My bad.
I'll make a motion to approve revised policy BEDH as a first reading.
Second.
Any further discussion or comments? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, any questions on the manifest?
And then it's SBA.
It's
Okay.
all set to go, Michelle. I'll bring it over at the end.
I'm sorry.
It's all set.
I have to
think
sign.
he has to
somewhere
sign
in there. Thank
I'll
you.
leave it at that spot.
Public input?
So I just wanted to thank you for your outline. But I had some clarifying questions. You don't have to answer them now, but just in general, when you have summatives going into the system, I understand all of your competencies across all the classes, they're weighed equally. So if there's 4 competencies, it's 25 cents each. There's nothing that varies from that, correct? Okay. So when you're putting in summatives and as a whole, one summative two summatives, like one summative's 100 points. The second summative is now, well, don't want to say 100 points, but it's 100% of the grade. Then when the second summative goes in, then it's 50% of the grade, right? So they're weighed equally. So everything's weighed equally across the board when you first put them in. So Tara, you had asked a question, and I think I heard half of an answer, but not to me. Yes, they're all put in, and at the end of the semester, if you have 20 assignments, they're all weighed equally. But then each competency might have a different number of summatives in each one. So then those summatives, like there could be 5 in one in one competency, 4 in another competency, 3 in another competency. Not that you ever want that, but I get that. But, and I know like when the teachers are asking for points based, and it's something we're used to, is that they want to have the ability to weigh a test a little bit more than a quiz, or an essay more than a short answer. And I understand that too, and I think it makes it easier for everybody to understand. The other thing, I actually do have in Power School, I can show you where we're using the 1 to 4 scale, and right here, 3 out of 4 that's a formative, but 1 out of 4 not yet met. So it is being used. 4 out of 4. So it is the 1 to 4 scale is being used.
There are some teachers that are using it for their summers.
Yes, but when competency-based learning, my understanding is the 1 to 4 scale shouldn't be weighed like this, and it's a system configuration, right? So basically, when you have competency-based learning, a 4 is anywhere. It's like a certain grade if you're going to put it in. It's not just 1, 2, 3, 4. You could have like a 3.7 or a 3.8. This is not what was explained to my child. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. So I think there's communication that needs to happen. And the thing is, it's not consistent. And that's where this confusion is coming from. And to me, I got an email saying that homework is no longer going to be done. And and as part of the information that's sent out to the parents is, these formatives are supposed to get these kids ready for these summatives. Now, if there's no more homework, how am I supposed to know if my kid's ready or if he's getting it?
There's no more.
Sorry. Yes, there's no, that's right. That's okay. There's no homework, no more formatives. None since the beginning of the second semester.
In one class.
So they're
I
not
think
being
those are two different things. Homework is a type of formative, but if there's no formatives at all, like formatives should be classwork and things that are going on during the course of the class period.
So in this class, formatives were only homework. So this is what I'm saying.
So again,
there's communication that needs to happen across the board. And honestly, like when you say like, there's going to be a big change, this scares me because parents are just getting used to Power School. And I understand every time you have an upgrade, we do it with colleague. We have SIS system at work. Every quarter, we have to go through rapid, like rigorous testing. We have to do regression testing. We have to do like what our acceptance criteria is, what our expectations are when they come out before those patches even go in. And we have to hold back certain patches if it messes with any of the custom configuration we do. So I understand that. So this is what scares me because I know that parents are just getting used to this now. And there are issues in Power School now because the work studies, the other piece that came up is that the work studies, they are in there as formatives across all my students,
and that may
all of them.
Again, it's not across the board. They were not supposed to be entered that way, and
so that's not a Power School thing.
That's not a Power School issue. That is an issue with.
But here's the thing: they all got somehow the same message. You know what I mean? And it wasn't both my son's teachers somehow got the same message. Now, sending out, having some sort of book or some, like how you're going to set up your para school and what your expectations are when they put them in should be outlined somewhere. And
we
I
have
am,
it. We have it. It's sent out to teachers quarterly, and it's available on our website. Like, this is not something that we are not doing.
And Susan, I'm curious, like when the teachers said they're not going to do the formatives, did you ask them about that?
I asked my son about it first.
Yeah.
And I have sent an email, yes.
Yeah, because
That's concerning to me to
Yeah,
hear
it
that we're
is.
not doing formatives in a class.
And Mary and I, just the other day, we were looking at a particular grade book, and there was like a practice that we said, do not do this, and it was done. And so again, we
had to go back to the,
and we're talking foundational things that have been drilled in.
Mhm.
And I immediately called the principal and said, this is wrong.
So,
And he looked at it and said, oh my gosh.
we've been talking about that
Yep.
for the last
And so the
3
point
years.
is that it is not a lack of training. We just have people who either have a brain fade, choose not to pay attention. I don't know what the answer is, but we address them individually when we see them.
right.
And again,
So, and then, but we do, and I don't know if it's something you do, we build a library. When something like that happens, we put out a FAQ and we say, hey, this happened, so this is how we need to address it going forward.
The administrator
We've done
should do that.
but we've done that. We have an entire staff manual, and every time, so when the issues around work study practices entry, we took a separate document specifically on entering work study practices. So we pulled it out of the, how do you do all of your different
That's
entry?
how we got
We pulled it
two
out.
different
It's
things,
a
yeah.
different document. It was sent out to staff, and I trained yesterday, I trained the CFs on it, and I will go down to the middle school at some point and be training their teacher leaders on it just to review it. Because as I said to them, you guys are the first line for your teachers.
Right.
Like, you have to be able to understand it and be able to make sure that they are doing the right thing. So it's not that it's not there. It's not that it, and I had teachers say to me yesterday, but we just don't want to look at it. And I get that. I get that it's a lot, and I get that we're busy, but if we're not entering it right, that's a problem.
So is there something that, how long is this thing? I guess, how big is this document?
We have, like, they're short documents, and there's videos to go with them. Like, they're not, we have
It's not,
documents to do each, like how to enter a grade, how to reconcile grades, how to enter work study practices, how to, like, they're individual documents. They're not a massive document that, and they all are, I mean, Andrea does an amazing job of making sure that there's the text, because some of us are
But they
readers.
also give you flags too, teacher discretion. They
Well,
give you
and
all
she
these
gives
things.
us, everything has a, screenshotted step by step. Do not enter this, enter here, arrows. So,
and unlike others, we enjoy the common planning time. So the curriculum facilitators who meet with Mary and the administration lead their departments during common time during the day. Grading practices should be a routine part of what's discussed there. So there are many mechanisms to make this.
I know we're not supposed to talk. Did your teacher say it was 25, 50, 75, 100?
No,
Tell
that's
us-
just
all right.
how it came out. That's how it got.
Oh, all right. So
that's-
no one told you that.
No, but this is
Okay.
how the system's configured right
Yeah.
now, and that's what it's assigning it, because a 1 out of 4 is a 25%. And I know in a competency-based scale, that's not correct.
No, she said
it's
there's a
not correct.
formula. Yeah.
It's not correct. So
Right.
that teacher, if they're going to enter grades on a 4-point scale, we have said there is a
Conversion
conversion
scale.
that has to be used.
Right, so it's not being used, and it's impacting kids in a negative
Okay,
way.
so we have to have that conversation with the teacher.
Yeah.
And that's really because there is no expectation right now that they're using a 1 to 4 scale.
If they are, they should
we are
use it
starting,
right.
they should be using it the right way. Correct.
Well, I mean, I don't think his training even started on that yet.
No, we've been working on building rubrics, 4-point rubrics.
Okay.
That's where we're at.
So
So
training-
implementing it,
Okay.
teachers that are using that 4-point rubric for assignments or assessments, the ones that I know about, I know have a conversion.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
if they are using it on their own and there isn't a conversion, then we need to have that conversation with the teacher.
Okay. And then I know in the beginning when we talked about it real quick that it's in one of the meeting notes for the grading and reporting, it said October 8th. You were training had started in November. No, not in the October one. It was second week in October. The training had started on the 4-point rubric.
On writing them, on creating
Okay.
them, not on
training
using
on
them.
writing them.
Yeah, we still
Okay.
haven't written them across the board.
Okay.
So that's what we were starting, was the practice of how to write them
Okay.
and how to build them.
So this is where, and honestly, I can tell you, like with the competency-based stuff, the teachers knew that before it was points-based, and they knew how to weigh their stuff and make sure that kids' competency, like at the high school, it was more so, they had the competencies already, but they did include the homework, they did include other stuff, whatnot.
But it wasn't consistent.
No, it wasn't consistent.
Each teacher did their own thing.
Yeah, so.
It wasn't even consistent course to course.
Right.
Mhm.
By
Right.
being inconsistent course to course, this biology grade is an equivalent to this biology grade. That's the stuff we're trying to fix.
Yeah, and there was something else you said, Mary. I'll think of it after, but I had a clarifying question on it. I didn't make a note, but anyway.
Feel free to
Yeah.
reach out.
But as far as, and I know with the grammar school, there was a lot of issues because years ago, I'll give you an example. My son I kept hearing your son, he's doing just fine, but that's because they mixed his grades. An overall grade, he got an 80, but it's because he was getting 100 on his vocab and spelling, but the comprehension was a 30. And I kept saying, no, he's having issues. His comprehension isn't there. So, this is good, this competency-based stuff across the board. And I'm full on board, and I want to be a partner, and I want to have a seat at the table. I will be more than willing to help you guys with the Power School, with this big update. And if there's training documents that need to be done, if there's testing, as a parent and as a taxpayer, I would be more than happy to help you guys in any way I can. This is what I do for a living. And I just want it to be successful, and I want everybody to be happy and everybody to feel like they have a voice at the table. And I feel communication to the community needs to happen. And, we need to have all the ducks in a row before we roll something out and watch it fail. Because I feel like this is what's happening. We're rolling it out. We don't have everything documented and everything defined. And this is why we're having some inconsistencies.
But we're not rolling anything out at this point. There has not been, and we're working to build the pieces so that when we do roll it out, we have all of our ducks in a row.
Okay. But let's go back to Power School implementation. Taking away the teacher's ability for the points-based. I mean, that was rolled out, and honestly, that took everybody by surprise, I think.
Susan,
Right,
I have to say that is not accurate. And
No, you took away their points-based scoring.
they were involved in that, but we're kind of rehashing. I mean, that was.
No,
my
I
God,
understand that,
COVID.
but I want to avoid that.
Yeah. no,
That's
I-
what I'm saying.
I hear you. Can why don't Mary and I set a meeting up with you so that we can engage a little bit further? And, because we're open and welcome to engaging with parents.
Absolutely.
I mean, it worries me when I hear that we're not open and welcome, or that people aren't returning phone calls or whatever, because I strive very hard to do that.
As do
So I want to make sure that let's set a meeting up and we can engage further about it and keep plugging, because I think we're all going in the same direction. We just need
Absolutely.
to
We
work
just
together.
need to-
get there.
And is there a reason why parents can't sit on any of these grading and reporting committees?
So I'll answer from my point of view only, and that is that when you've got a professional committee of educators, they want to have that professional dialogue. It's just a different dialogue than when parents are there. You have a different level of knowledge on it than many parents do. And so, I think it's important that we have a grading and reporting committee that is engaged of the professional educators in the school district. Doesn't mean there's not another way to get there, but that's why I feel that it's set up and established the way it is.
So could there potentially be another board, like when, like we're putting this stuff together for like this big rollout of Power School? I mean, if it's going to be that big of a change for people?
I mean, we don't know. I don't know yet. Andrea's working with Power School and to see exactly to what extent it's going to be and how much of it they can set up for us so it's not that big of a change. I'm just not going to sugarcoat it and say, oh, we might have to tweak this or that.
Yeah.
What we've been told is it's going to be a major change. What that looks like, we're still working on. And once we know, once we have down exactly what that looks like, then we're not going to keep it behind closed doors. I mean, we already have some introductory overview training planned for the 25th of March on our PD
Okay.
day.
Yeah.
And then it will be a rollout to staff and parents. We've already talked about doing training at open house for parents. That is going to be a key piece because parents have finally gotten used to using the system. And if there are major changes that we can't go without providing direct training. So that is already in the works. It's just, we're not yet sure exactly what
Okay.
the changes are going to look like and how, do we have to run weekly sessions because there's massive changes, or can we do, an after school and an evening session one day when school starts? That we won't know until we have our better grasp on what the changes are actually going to look like.
Do you happen to know what version of Power School you're rolling out?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
It's
Probably
just
the version they have now because they're
Well, no, I know.
constantly-
Well, because, we know we have a new version coming out, but we already have insight into what those changes are going to be. So that's
Andrea
all,
is
like-
starting to get it. She's starting to do more work directly with Power School. Part of the problem is she also just did all of our scheduling for all, the
So is she
building.
still a one-person show there?
Yeah.
She needs help.
She's a 1.5 person show.
Okay.
So I'm
Does
glad
that
that you guys are going to plan a meeting to discuss this further, but your time's up.
Okay. I just want one more just statement. Dr. Jetty, you said something about, students can, if they're not ready to take the test, they can reschedule with their teachers.
Oh, no, I said that's something that I, individual teachers should have that ability. I'm not saying they
Okay.
will. Yep.
No, but I'm just clarifying that, like, that's not really what you meant, right? Because that would be a scheduling nightmare.
I mean, a
Like,
kid who
in the-
comes in, and what happens I'm sort of reacting back to Liz's comment about another district.
Yeah.
When you don't have mechanisms in place, then kids will just come in and say, yeah, I don't really care. I'm not ready, but I'll take it anyway. I can just take another
Right.
later.
Okay.
That's not good practice. And what ends up happening is it dooms competency ed. That's a procedural piece. That's really not relative to the notion of achieving competency. So I was just saying, as a teacher, I would rather, and again, it's not for half the class isn't going to take the test, right? I'm talking the one-off, the kid who,
Genuinely
the
has.
parents had a blowout the night before, mom leaves home and we're expecting the kid to come in and do well on this test.
Yeah.
Like, no, talk to me about it and let's work it out. I don't want you to flunk it so that you can just do it later.
Yeah.
Let's work it out individually, one-offs.
Okay. All right. That's
Thanks for
all
the
I
chance to
had.
clarify that.
No problem. I was like, huh? So, thank you.
Yep.
It's a little PTO reunion when we were on the
Right.
PTO together.
All right, thank you for that. And with that, we will move into non-public session according to RSA 91-A:311. A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee or the disciplining of such employee or the investigation of any charges against him unless the employee affected, 1, has a right to a meeting, and 2, requests that the meetings be open, in which case the request shall be granted. B, the hiring of any person as a public employee. C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person other than a member of the agency or body itself.
That's Corey.
Oh. Unless such person requests an open meeting. I'll take a roll call vote. Brian?
Yes.
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
And Heidi?
Yes.
All right, we are in non-public. Thank you. Have a good night.